Hi everyone, this is Dindin. I just wanted to make an Albion Online Crystal GVG guide. So I see a lot of people trying to get into crystals, but there's not a lot of guides or information online, so here is my Crystal GVG guide. So first, a quick overview. Crystals are 5v5 battles, and the goal is to capture and hold as many of the 3 control points as possible. You do this by either pushing away or killing the enemy team. Each team usually has a tank, healer, and 3 DPS, either 2 ranged and 1 melee, or 1 melee and 2 ranged. But in this guide, I will focus more on the double ranged DPS comps because I think they're a bit better and a little more common. I want to talk about what the mindset of a ranged DPS should be. The goal is to do as much damage as possible while not getting killed. And it is not to kill the enemy. And I want to repeat that one more time. It's to do as much damage as possible, and it is not to kill the enemy. I know this sounds a bit counterintuitive, but I see a lot of players making the mistake of chasing after kills while getting hit by 2 or 3 other players and getting killed themselves. So your goal should be to do as much damage as possible to provide opportunities for your team to get kills. Now, if no one is focusing you and you still have your shoe ability to get away and other defensives, go ahead and chase for the kill. But in general, especially when you're getting focused, leave that for your tank and your melee DPS. So again, the main things to think about a ranged DPS is to 1, do as much damage as possible, 2, minimize the amount of damage you take, and 3, don't overchase for kills. Okay, so let's talk about the tank's mindset. A tank's number 1 goal is to reduce the amount of damage the enemy DPS is doing. For example, interrupting crossbow thunders, purging bows, stopping an enemy dive on your healer. The tank's secondary role is to secure kills and interrupt heal resets. A mindset mistake I see tanks have is trying to CC the enemy healer as their first priority. It's important to first help your team generate pressure by CCing the enemy DPS, and then look for kills and CC the healer. So the tank's mindset is 1, reduce the amount of damage of the enemy DPS, and 2, create kill opportunities, usually by CCing the enemy healer. So let's move on to melee DPS. The role and play style of different melee DPS varies a lot, so I just want to focus on 2 right now. And it's the executioner builds, which are like Death Givers and Claymore. And then I also want to talk about the axe because of this new patch. So I'll first talk about playing an executioner. When playing an executioner, it's important to sync up your burst damage with some kind of armor pierce when possible. For example, a crossbow thunder, a cursed beam, a fully stacked bow. So this is going to amplify your burst damage a lot, and it can easily bring someone down from 100 to 0 if they're not paying attention. And in terms of defense, you want to try and pull back early for heals, so that's when you get armor pierced. And you also don't want to clump with your backline, and you want to avoid AoEs like the Cursed Sickle. I also want to give a special shout out to axes for this patch. So axes got a huge damage buff and a range increase on the AoE Q for the rending spin. So now it deals more damage than a sword single target Q, and on top of that, it's AoE, and 3 stacks of the bleed reduces healing on a target. Also, as an axe, you're probably running soldier armor and Scholar Cowl, which makes you extremely tanky. So axes right now are tanky, have high AoE damage that also reduces healing. And also, if you're running a Karen Caller, the E ability, the Morgana Raven, reduces healing even more. In this patch, the cooldown was reduced to 16 seconds. So I think we're going to see a lot more axes being played this patch. So the main ideas behind a melee DPS. So 1, your priority target is the enemy backline. 2, sync up your damage with a pierce if you're an execute build. 3, don't clump with your backline or don't overextend. Or 5, just play axe and spam Q. So the last role left is the healer. So the healer is the most important role in the team, and the concept is pretty simple. So first, don't die, and 2, keep everyone else alive. So it's usually a lot more important to keep yourself alive as a healer, because if the healer goes down, the team can't really sustain a fight, so they're forced to retreat. If your teammate overextends, don't want to chase after them unless you also think you can get out alive. But remember, it's also important to keep your team as healthy as possible so they can keep on fighting and pressuring the enemy team. So the intricacies of how to play healer is a bit more complex than what I want to put in this video, so I'll save that for a future video. So that's all I have for this guide. I know I left out a lot of information because I wanted to keep this video relatively short. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, feel free to leave me a message or PM me on Discord. See you in Albion.